Learning objectives. By the end of the session, you should be able to know how basic contract creation is done in Dynamics AX. You should be able to see the creation of different billing terms and setting up of negotiated fixed rate agreements as part of your project contract. Basic contract creation and setup. In this section, we're going to see how to set up and create a basic time and materials contract and a basic fixed price contract. Let's start with the creation and setup of a basic time and materials contract. For creating a basic time and materials contract, navigate to the Project Management and Accounting area page. Under Common, select the Project Contracts menu item to open the Project Contracts list page. On this page, you'll see the list of all contracts that have already been created, and you can create a new project contract from this list page. Let's go ahead and start a new project contract. We will call this ERP implementation project. We have to specify a customer on this first creation screen, and the funding type here is a customer because we're starting this as an external engagement with a customer. As a next step, we will need to specify a contract customer. We will say Active Transport is going to pay for this contract, so that this is an engagement with Active Transport. Notice that the sales currency is defaulted based on the customer's default currency. This will also be the invoice currency or the currency in which invoices are created for this contract. Let's go ahead and create this project contract. This is the project contract details page. The contract that we have created, ERP implementation, is opened in this page, and you can see the details here. It is opened by default in view mode. In order to edit the properties of this contract, bring it back into edit mode, and you can now edit the properties of this contract. On the General tab of the contract, you are able to set up the sales tax group, invoice frequency, and the price group for that contract. In the system, for this demo, we do not have a price group. Let's go ahead and see what a price group is and how we can set those up and then associate the price group to this contract. A price group is nothing but a collection of prices that will be used for determining the sales amounts on this contract. In order to create a price group, let's right-click in the node and go to the details and create a price group from here. We will call this price group as a preferred customer price group. Let's save this price group. And then now we can set up our sales prices for hours, expenses, fees, and items for this price group. Let's go ahead and set up a sales price for hours or labor hours. Let's give it an effective date as of May 1st, 2014. We will select the category of consulting, management consulting, and we can now specify a price of $200 an hour for management consulting. We have now created a price group, and it has one labor category which is priced at $200. Let's go ahead and create one more labor category pricing. Let's call this ERP development, and ERP development is going to be priced at $150 an hour. So now this price group is a collection of two prices that are effective as of May 1st for two categories, ERP development and management consulting, and they have a price associated with them. Let's go ahead and close the price group for preferred customers. This is the price group, and those were the price lines. We'll go ahead and close it, and Let's now do the final step of associating a price group to this contract. So the purpose of the price group is so you can set up negotiated rate cards for a particular contract engagement. And once you have a negotiated rate card set up as a price group, you will have to associate that price group to a project contract in order for those prices to take effect. Besides the sales tax and the price group, line property setup will also allow you to control which transactions are chargeable and which transactions are not chargeable to the customer. In order to set up line properties, you will have to go to the Project Management and Accounting area page. Under Setup, select Line Properties, and you will be able to create line properties. So we have two line properties here. One is we have called billable and one that we have called non-billable. For billable line property, we mark the chargeable switch so that any transaction that is stamped with the billable line properties is chargeable to the customer. For this line property, we have left the chargeable switch unselected, which means that any transaction that is stamped with the non-billable line property will not get charged to the customer or will not show up on the project invoice. So we have defined or predefined two line properties. Under project group line properties, we can now define the default line property that gets stamped on every transaction for a particular project or contract. So before we go ahead and create line properties, associate a default line property for a project contract, we will have to go ahead and create a project for our contract. Let's open the contracts list page, navigate to the contract that we just created, let's create a project under this contract. We'll create a time and materials project contract. Associated with the time and materials with WIP project group. So we are electing. Notice that the customer has defaulted from the contract and there is a start date that has defaulted to today's date for this project. Let's go ahead and create this project. As a first step, we will mark the project to in process stage. So the project is now in process. We'll close this project and let's now go ahead and set up a default line property for any transactions associated to the project. Let's go back to the area page, project group line properties under setup, and let's create a. This is valid for project. The project is ERP implementation. This is valid for all categories, and the default line property for is billable. This is one way of setup where you can say all transactions for this project are chargeable. But since we have pricing set up for two specific labor categories, let's go ahead and set up the line properties for those categories. For a specific category of management consulting, it is billable. Let's create a new line property relation for ERP implementation project. for the category, ERP Dev, line property is billable. For all other categories, let's make it non-billable. So this line property setup indicates that for this project for ERP implementation, ERP Dev and Consult categories are billable, all other categories are non-billable. Let's go back to the project contract. We now have a basic project contract created with a default project under it, and we have the sales tax group defined, an invoice frequency of weekly, and the sales currency as the default currency that came from the customer. And we also set up a preferred customer's price group and associated that price group or a rate card to this contract. We also went ahead and set up that the two labor categories of ERP implement and ERP development and management consulting are chargeable. All the other labor categories are not chargeable. You have now seen the setup of a basic time and materials project. Once you have this set up, you can now start logging transactions against the ERP implementation project, and you will be able to see the billing setup that you have being honored when you generate invoices. Let's move on to show the creation of a basic fixed price project contract. For this, we will follow the same setup as we did for time and material contracts. Let's go ahead and create a new project contract. We will call this fixed price ERP. We will select a customer. Let's select active transport, and we'll notice the same way that the sales currency is defaulting. As you can see, the invoice frequency and the sales tax group is the same as before, and the sales currency is the same as before because we have chosen the same customer. On a fixed price engagement, the contract value of the work is known, and the customer pays for this fixed value. The contract value may be paid as a lump sum or according to a predetermined schedule of milestones. In Dynamics AX, you can record the schedule of milestones as on-account transactions against your project. These on-account transactions will be used for invoicing the customer when you need to, and the sum of all on-account transactions on a project is the contracted value of that project. So let's go ahead and set up the basic version of a fixed price project. We'll go ahead and create a fixed price project. We'll call this fixed price ERP, which is the same name as the contract. It doesn't have to be, but it makes it easier for the purposes of this demo. We'll associate a project group, which is a collection of revenue recognition parameters. And notice that the contract, since we initiated the creation of the project from the contract details page, the contract ID has defaulted and the customer has defaulted, and a default start date for today's date has been associated with the project. We'll create the project and set the project stage as in process. We get a warning that a budget hasn't been approved yet. Click OK on that. And now we can set up the contract value of the fixed price project. For this, navigate to the Manage tab on the project, open up the On Account Transactions form, and over here you can set up your milestones for this project. Let's say this project has 3 milestones. Design complete, milestone worth $50,000, and a dev complete milestone of $100,000. So this in total are the contract value for this contract engagement or this project. Each project holds its own portion of the contract value. You can have multiple projects associated with a contract, and they can be of different types. The contract value of the contract itself is the sum of the on-account transactions across all projects associated with that contract. With the contract fixed price ERP, we have created only one project, and we have a contract value of $150,000, which is the sum of the on-account transactions on the project that is associated with this contract. So you have seen the setup of a fixed price project and a basic time and materials project. Let's review some of the concepts. Fixed price project. Customers pay for a pre-negotiated fixed contract value. Invoice schedule may be fixed one time for a lump sum, or invoice may be based on a schedule based on milestone completion, work in process, units delivered. We will see the setup of a fixed price project based on a schedule in the topic on advanced project billing. Contract value, which is nothing but on-account transactions. For fixed price projects, on-account transactions hold the contract value. In a milestone-based schedule for invoicing, each milestone must be set up as a separate on-account transaction. For work in progress or units delivered based schedule, a lump sum on-account is created during the setup of contract. As invoicing occurs, the system keeps track of the portion of the lump sum contract value that has been invoiced. Time and material contract. Customers pay based on consumption of materials, time, or expenses. Whether a particular type of cost appears on an invoice is governed by line property setup. Not to exceed or NTE limits are set up to the limit of the exposure of the customer paying for the contract. Price groups. A handle for a group of prices across transaction types of time, materials, and expenses. Price group handle can be assigned to a project contract, customer, or project for that pricing to take effect. Invoice currency. Currency in which the invoice for the contract will be created. In Dynamics AX, only one invoice currency is allowed for a contract, even if the contract has multiple customers, each with their own default invoice currency.